Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and I'm reviewing a book called Love Letters from the Bar Table. It's a book by Shane Dowling in the Crimes of the Law book series. Picture of him there, picture of the ex-Prime Minister Kevin Rudd there, and on the back there are some quotes and another picture of Shane. This is a book who talks about who lied and who knew Kevin. And it's a book that lifts the lid on corruption in the Australian judicial system. There's a Flickr review I've got there, and I've written a fairly detailed review. You can see in the book itself we've got a lot of extracts of copies of emails, letters and various other things, and there's a few little pictures and various other bits and pieces in the book. It's a self-printed and published book. But let me just go through what I've said as a title. I've given it the title Natural Justice and New Table Talk. And I've said this, I'm always interested in the cross-section of law books depicting the work of the common law across the jurisdictions. And when I came across this curious self-published work, Love Letters from the Bar Table, which is written by Shane Dowling, and is a collection of his case, if you like, it has a certain number of issues in it which I thought, dealing with the legal establishment in Australia, it would be worth looking at a bit further, because I do from time to time, I get a lot of clients who complain about the judiciary, and I like to at least make sure that the views are looked at. A doctrine which is gaining international popularity at the present time is what we call judicial recusal, where a judge stands aside, or is made to stand aside in certain circumstances, based on the two main rules of natural justice, namely a judge may not act in his own cause, and both sides must be heard. And the New Zealand academic Grant Hammond has written a definitive work on the current state of the law on a sabbatical at Magdalen, Oxford. I think it's a fair comment to say that we don't have any recognised corruption within the judiciary in the UK. I, for one, have grave reservations about the strength of any argument which suggests forms of corruption elsewhere amongst judges because of the catastrophic constitutional implications involved. That's why, when I saw this book, I would want to look at it in a bit more detail. So what I'm saying here is that I've no idea of the rights and wrongs of Shane's case. I don't offer an opinion about it, although I have read his documents and his views in the book itself in some detail. What I do say, however, is that I feel the worth of this book merits some consideration in relation to the basic concepts we hold true in the common law traditions, namely upholding the rules of natural justice. We've got to be seen to be doing this properly. The book is described as a true story about the systematic scandalisation of the Australian federal judicial system. That's a pretty strong indictment, Shane. In 18 chapters and just over 300 pages, it's a biggish book, a case is being made out that certain people are by definition corrupt and taking bribes, but it's one-sided with silence and inaction on the other. The problem remains that when judicial decisions are made where one party becomes aggrieved by the outcome, the phrase sour grapes springs to mind. I feel Dowling doesn't suffer from sour grapes, but has that other perennial being ignored problem, which a lot of clients that I come across have. And also in the political world, of course, with constituents. It's only relatively recently in UK that judges now give interviews or sometimes reply to correspondence through their clerks. So I'm not surprised by the tactics employed in the stop or rather ignore Dowling campaign. Frankly, I doubt whether he'll ever get closure on the matter. But he raises a most important principle, and I thank him for that, and that is, when should a judge retire from a hearing? Or in other words, when can we question a judge? I came away from the book, and as I said, when I wrote the review, Rudd was still Prime Minister, with a rather perplexed feelings. I didn't know much about Rudd. My view was he wouldn't do anything, and that appears to have been the case. The Australian judiciary would never acknowledge any form of corruption as I see it, and the case for a Royal Commission, or whatever name you want to call it in the future, is many years away. Obviously, if it's convened, and it gives any form of realistic appraisal to be acted upon, possibly something for the distance. So what to do? Well, Dowling's raised the consciousness of the issue in parallel with increases in judicial recusal applications as the wider public become more aware of the failings of judges, and it's bound to extend as people get more fed up sometimes with the decisions they're faced with. Frankly, it's a can of worms with no winners on the horizons as I see it. But I would like to think that the ironically named love letters is a marker setting down a future agenda for international human rights and upholding the rules of natural justice in the tradition of a discussion on, say, a new Table Talks theme. That's why I've given it that title. It's a valuable contribution, as I see it, to the debate on how we face the future in the global marketplace as a sort of discussion forum with the age of the internet, and where judges and politicians will have to face up to a new agenda of jurisprudential responsibility by answering their critics if our accepted concept of natural justice is ignored. It's an inevitable knock-on effect as we progress through this 21st century. Thank you, Shane. Good luck with what you're doing. I have no idea of the outcome of this, but I'm grateful to you for bringing this book to my attention. Thank you. Goodbye.